Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever wondered if someone is genuinely interested in you, but you just couldn't quite decipher the hidden meaning behind their polite conversation? Well, today we're unlocking the totally fascinating world of nonverbal communication. Because if you know exactly what to watch for, those little, easily missed moments can tell you far, far more than a rehearsed smile or perfectly chosen words ever could. So let's systematically break down exactly what you should be looking for. But first, we really have to start by asking a massive, fundamental question. Can a single gesture actually prove attraction? I want you to keep that question right in the back of your mind as we go through today's explainer, because it sets up a really intriguing open loop for us. We're going to explore some deeply ingrained habits, and we will finally close this loop when we get to the crucial, overarching number 8 behavior a little later on. Trust me, you absolutely won't want to miss it. All right, let's dive right into this. Part 1. The single gesture myth, and exactly why one action just isn't enough. It is incredibly tempting to look for a silver bullet, right? You see a specific fleeting movement and think, aha, that means they like me. But honestly, isolated cues will almost always lead us astray. For example, if a woman touches her hair, our brains instantly want to code that as flirting, but it could literally just mean she's fixing a flyaway. Or someone touching your arm. They might just be a naturally expressive talker. Even open palms, which are so often cited as a classic sign of vulnerability, could mean absolutely nothing romantic. To find the actual truth, we have to look way past these isolated events and focus on what really matters: patterns and engagement. So if that silver bullet is a total myth, what actually works in the real world? That brings us to part 2, the power of the pattern, and finding the real clues. Here is the absolute core takeaway you need to remember from this explainer. The real clue is the pattern itself, and a pattern means multiple signals appearing together. It's a combination of warm conversation, sustained eye contact, deep engagement, and an undeniable willingness to stay close. True attraction is never, ever just a solitary flick of the wrist or a random adjustment of a collar. It's reliably revealed through this consistent tapestry of signals, all backed up by the engaging context of your interaction. Which brings us nicely to part 3, why hands reveal the truth and their role as the subconscious communicator. There is a really fascinating psychological mechanism at play here. People rarely monitor every tiny movement they make. Because our hands are constantly moving around during an engaging conversation, our rational minds simply cannot track every single gesture. We are so incredibly focused on formulating the actual words we're saying that we essentially just let our hands run on autopilot. And what exactly are those unmonitored hands broadcasting? Well, before a person even consciously realizes how they feel, their hands are basically putting it all on display. They reveal hidden excitement, subtle nervousness, a deep sense of comfort, or intense emotional engagement. When someone becomes highly engaged in a conversation with you, those underlying feelings just bubble up to the surface. They show up in these hand gestures long before a single romantic or vulnerable word is consciously expressed aloud. Let's move right along to part 4, 8 signs of attraction, and reading the behaviors. Now, before we all go playing detective at our next social gathering, we need to issue a quick professional caveat. You can read the gestures, for sure, but do not jump to conclusions. We absolutely must analyze these behaviors through the lens of those patterns we were just discussing. A sudden, erratic hand movement is just a single data point. It's definitely not a declaration of love. You've got to keep your analytical hat on and watch patiently to see how the behaviors stack together over time. Which perfectly sets the stage for the climax we've been teasing since the very beginning of this explainer. Part 5, the ultimate attraction signal, moving beyond the micro-expression. We have officially arrived at signal number 8. This is the ultimate indicator that moves entirely beyond just a tiny, fleeting gesture of the hand or a quick micro-expression. The 8th and final signal is consistent, voluntary, physical closeness. It turns out, number 8 isn't even a micro-expression at all. It is the overarching macro behavior that ties everything else together. If a person is choosing to consistently and voluntarily physically close the gap between you two, whether that's, leaning in during dinner, finding excuses to sit next to you, or subtly removing physical barriers like moving cups or bags out of the way on a table, that is the ultimate sign. Their hands might give you the early subconscious clues of excitement or nervousness, but this sustained proximity, that's the undeniable real-world pattern that confirms the whole shebang. So, I want to leave you with a provocative thought.
and a direct challenge for your very next interaction. Will you search for single, isolated clues, or will you patiently watch for the pattern? Think about how this fascinating psychological framework applies not just to reading others, but to analyzing your own unmonitored gestures. The next time you find yourself drawn to someone, pay really close attention to what your own hands are doing and how close you are choosing to be. You might just surprise yourself with what you uncover. Thank you so much for exploring the science of connection with me in this explainer, and remember, always step back and look at the bigger picture.